Hey, what's up everyone? Eric Rossi, the guy with the eye here, and I have two big announcements that Canon has made. Now, a lot of you might not know that I do a lot of video work as well in the field, but it's a big deal because some of the features that they, included with this new Canon C700, and it really kind of ties into them being late and some of the mistakes they made with the Canon 5D Mark IV. I'll explain. Canon pretty much has a cinema line of cameras, and that's why they don't include a lot of their stuff within their DSLR line, because they don't want to cannibalize it, and this stuff costs more and it allows you to do more, and it's obviously more professional. They're more ENG type, style cameras and everything like that. But the C700 is a bit different, but it really is a little bit too late in a way, except Canon hasn't made it. So if you were in the Canon market and everything, you finally have these options. But and it's the same thing as the Canon 5D Mark IV, without getting in the spec shit, is that it's a little bit too late to really be innovative. Now, Canon's argument would be, well, we've got newer, state of the line and everything like that, but that's for your market and that's for your line that you already have. But there's already cameras like this out there for similar prices, like Arri Alexas and everything, that have pretty much a lot of similar specs and everything. So it still seems Canon was just really rushing things out here. But let's not put this down. The C700 and the XC15 are two cameras that I'm going to cover within this preview, and it's just great to talk about because some of the features that maybe one day I will get to DSLRs. Canon is saying that the C700 is going to be their new flagship model and will be available soon. I'll get the pricing in a little bit, but it will have a 4.5K sensor, in which is kind of in quotes. They're using that as a marketing feature and saying that will be a firmware update down the line. But there are a lot of interesting things about this camera, though, even though with some of the downfalls, like I had mentioned, and it's really kind of the look as well. It really kind of has a modular design, so you're going to be able to add stuff onto it, especially with the plate spot up top and everything like that. So it's going to be interesting to see what else they come out with, because they're even adding on a RAW feature to this thing, so where you could, shoot RAW into this modular, attachment, and you can get different kind of RAW photo. And it really looks like the front end of like the C100, 300 and everything like that. So it's interesting how they built this kind of beast that they're doing. One interesting thing to note, this, I think, 3-inch screen right here is not a touchscreen, so it didn't even come from the 5D Mark IV, which was just announced like literally last week. So that's interesting as well, where a lot of other competitors out there have that. Awesome point, it does have 15 stops of dynamic range, and that's what you get from these big, sensors and everything, these ENG type sensors, especially Super 35 is what they're using in these type of things. But the interesting part, and I shared a post about this on Facebook, is you have two shutter options. Now we know why this is an option. You could buy one which has a CMOS sensor, which is pretty much your normal one. It's better in, ISO sensitivity and everything like that, for $28,000, but it also has a global shutter, which does eliminate the rolling shutter and everything, for $30,000. And I think that's a big deal. I don't know if that will sell more because people are too used to using CMOS sensors, but you get a lot of that movement issues with a lot of these typical sensors, where the background looks very terrible when you're moving and it just doesn't look that great. It's a little disturbing. Global shutters fix those issues, and I think that's a very, very big deal, and hopefully that's a feature that makes it into like a Canon 5D Mark V down the line or something like that. Once again, I know that they will protect their cinema line, which they've pretty much done, but I think that's a big deal. But this will have a global shutter, and I think that's very interesting, but they come at different prices. We'll have dual pixel AF, pretty much like the Canon C300 Mark II, and they said it's gotten better, and I think it's something at least similar to an extent with what's in the Canon 5D Mark IV, so keep that in mind. It will use CFast 2.0, and that pretty much comes from the C300 Mark II, and it has two mounts available, the PL and the EF mounts, in which if you want to switch, you just go to the Canon Service Professional, and they will switch it for you. But the important part is, what does this shoot? Once again, they say it does 4.5K, but that's not available yet. When you buy it in some time in the future, which isn't dated, they will be available via a firmware update. But you could do a little bit of 4K in ProRes, but it's essentially you can really do 2K at 60 frames in ProRes, and with a 2K crop in ProRes, you can get 180 FPS. So that's pretty interesting. But if you're shooting new XF AVC, you get 4K at 60 frames per second. You can get proper 2K at 120 and 60 FPS. That's very interesting. Just mind you, you always need light. But if you want a center crop to get 240 frames per second, that will be at 2K. So you do get a lot of options with this camera. So there is a lot more in depth about this camera. I just don't really feel like breaking more down. It's just great to notate what this is doing and how this line is improving. And I've used the C100s and the 300s out there, and they're amazing cameras for what they are. The C100 is pretty outdated at this point, but the C300 line is freaking amazing. The autofocusing on that, even though it's very poo-pooed in the video industry, has become second to none with the dials you can move around and everything like that. But you're getting a lot of features that are already out there on other cameras and everything. But it will be a big deal, especially for the Canon line. But yet again, once again, the CMOS sensor is going to be $28,000 and the global shutter is going to be $30,000. To me, I like the global shutter idea, but I don't know if that will sell a ton. But it will help with movement, and a lot of this stuff is for improved HDR and everything like that, especially with the sports industry. So this camera is a big deal and something that people have been waiting for years, and they kind of caught up a little bit too late, in my opinion. So the other camera I'm going to talk about is the Canon XC15, which pretty much replaces the Canon XC10, which, as you can see right now, is already dropping in price, $500. So I think that this will come out to be around the same price, $2,500 to $2,700. There are improvements to this camera, but a lot of it is actually the same. As you'll see, it's just really a few tweaks that they made, but, you know, 4K, it does 4K, 1080p. It has a built-in lens to it that you can use that's essentially like a 24 to 240 35mm equivalent, and it's an f2.8 to f5.6 as you zoom in. The XC10 was an interesting camera to me. You know, there are some people that use it, and it's really maybe a B or C type of camera, really just kind of, you know, behind the scenes type of stuff. But, you know, that's essentially what you're getting right there. But it's become a little bit popular because of how portable it is. But a lot of the new stuff out there, like, once again, it shoots the CFast SD Digic 5 processor, 12 megapixels, blah, 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 ISO 100 to 200,000, kind of similar to the way the C300 is. But a lot of the new features are really just internally with everything, with a couple of new shutter speeds, which is a big idea. But now that you have the option to shoot 24p and you're not just stuck at like 29.7 at both 4K and 1080p video, which you get 60p at 1080p as well. So it's a lot of internal stuff. The XLR audio input is probably a bigger idea, but I think that's just for the MA400. But I just really want to say that this is something new out there as well. But the big idea of this Canon C700 with the global shutter is definitely a big deal that hopefully will find its way down to the DSLR line, but I don't think it's will. Thanks so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts down below. Does any of this stuff excite you? Once again, I know this stuff is uberly expensive. The Canon XC15 is probably going to be obviously more affordable than the C700, but anything in the C700 that's exciting? Does the global shutter interest you in anything? Because that's a big deal if you're like vlogging and everything like that. Obviously, two different ends of the spectrum here, but I think it's a big deal, and especially for movement in the industry and how you record that. So there's my thoughts, the preview of the Canon C700 and the XC15. We'll see, Canon.